November 27, 2006. It's week 12 of the NFL season, and on this snowy night, we find ourselves in Seattle for this NFC battle between the Green Bay Packers and the defending NFC champions, the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks won this game 34-24, improving to 7-4, and giving them a nice 2-game cushion on the St. Louis Rams for first place in the division, while the loss for the Packers dropped them to 4-7 and pretty much ended their season. As with 11 teams having 5 or more wins with just 5 games to go, all while fighting for just 6 spots in the playoffs, it was going to be hard to overcome that, barring a miracle. However, what was notable about this game in particular wasn't who was on the field, but rather who was off it. Because calling the game upstairs in the booth, you had Mike Tirico on play-by-play, Joe Theismann and Tony Kornheiser on color commentary, and then briefly in the second quarter, you had Jimmy Kimmel. That's right, Jimmy Kimmel was in the booth for a bit. When ESPN got the rights to Monday Night Football in 2006, they would occasionally have celebrities come upstairs and join the action for a drive or two. And you'll still see this practice at other sporting events to this day. If you've ever watched a preseason broadcast where a player is being interviewed during the game, or the owner or the general manager is being interviewed and is messing around with the guys upstairs, it's the same thing. The decision to bring Kimmel into the booth made a ton of sense. He was a guy who knew football, seeing as the man was the comedian for Fox for a long time on their pregame show. He regularly has people come over to his place to watch the games. In 2006, it was reported that his house had 17 televisions, specifically so you could watch all the games at the same time. It's not the first time they had a comedian up in the booth. Remember Dennis Miller back in the early 2000s? And not only did Kimmel know football, but you had that brand synergy, seeing as his late night show, Jimmy Kimmel Live, was on ABC, which, much like ESPN, is owned by Disney. The idea is that if you bring him on, and people like his style of comedy and gravitate toward it, they'll be more inclined to watch his late night show, which was definitely not as popular as Leno on NBC and Letterman on CBS, the two titans of the industry back then. And when Kimmel joined the booth for the Seahawks-Packers game on a snowy November night, it was a resounding success. To say that Kimmel knocked it out of the park would be putting it lightly. Many people did not like the celebrity segments of Monday Night Football, with even John Skipper, the vice president of programming for ESPN, wondering what were we thinking for some of these. But Kimmel's was a clear highlight. It was the exception to the rule, and one of the few segments that wasn't cringe. He was charismatic. He was funny, famously asking Joe Theismann this at the start of his interview.
For the third straight play. Joe, how's your leg?
Thank you for asking, Jimmy Clay. It was 21 years ago, but it's still attached.
Well, I haven't had a chance to ask you about it.
I haven't seen you in 21 years. Yeah, it's okay, thank you.
Okay, good.
I mean, that's amazing. He didn't interfere with the play and let Tirico do his job. He didn't say anything that crossed any lines and shook up the image of the brand, if that makes sense. Kimmel's segment for the Packers-Seahawks game was a hit. And with Skipper already saying that they were going to bring back the celebrity segments in 2007 for the second season of Monday Night Football on ESPN, seeing as they helped to bolster the ratings 41% from when ESPN had Sunday Night Football in 2005 and didn't have any celebrity cameos, catering solely to football fans, they knew exactly who needed to make an appearance at some point. That man was none other than Jimmy Kimmel. However, while there are some sequels that are just as good or better than the original, like Toy Story or The Godfather or Inside Out or Star Wars, there are many that are not. And then there are some that end in disaster to the point where it taints the legacy of the first one. And with Jimmy Kimmel, that's exactly what happened when he put together an appearance on Monday Night Football that was so disastrous that it led him to get banned from ever appearing on the show again. And this is the story behind what might just be, as of September 16, 2025, unless something happened right around the time I post this video that I don't know about, the craziest controversy of Jimmy Kimmel's career. Make sure you hit that like button down below, subscribe, hype up that video, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single video that we post on the channel. because we post every single day on here about the weird and the wacky history of the NFL with stories like this one that you may not have heard of before. So if you like that sort of stuff, then this is definitely the place for you. Thanks in advance for liking and subscribing, and for hyping the video up, and for helping us grow this community. And with that in mind, let's talk about the other time that Kimmel was canned. Before I talk about the incident in question, we need some context to understand the importance of the game at hand, as well as how the game itself was going. It's October 15, 2007. It's week 6 of the NFL season, and we find ourselves under the lights of the Georgia Dome for this NFC battle on Monday Night Football between the New York Giants and the Atlanta Falcons, with the Giants surging after winning 3 straight games, and the Falcons flailing hard in what turned out to be the worst season in franchise history, where everything that could go wrong went wrong. In terms of how this game went, the Giants won this one rather comfortably, taking it by a final score of 31-10 to win their 4th straight game and bounce back nicely following their 0-2 start, with the Giants scoring the final 24 points of the game, with Eli Manning throwing for over 300 yards, and with the defense forcing Joey Harrington on the opposite side to play like crap, with Harrington going 18 for 39, completing less than 50% of his passes, with no touchdowns and an interception. After the Falcons scored 10 points on their opening 2 drives of the game, they scored none on their final 11 drives, and had just 92 yards of offense on their ensuing 9 drives before the Giants played soft defense with 3 minutes left, holding on to a 21-point lead. It was that kind of day in that kind of season for Atlanta. And you would think that Atlanta, after dropping to 1-5 and looking completely incompetent past the first 2 drives, would be the biggest losers of the night. You would think it'd be impossible to do worse than how the Falcons did under the lights. But nope, because in the 3rd quarter, ESPN decided to bring out Jimmy Kimmel. And again, I can't hate the decision on ESPN's part. The man was funny the first time. The man knew the flow of the game. The man knew the boundaries of what could be said. And the man had some of the funniest quips of the entire season last time, making the painful celebrity appearances throughout the year worth it. This second attempt, on the other hand, would be a complete and utter disaster. What followed was some of the most uncomfortable dialogue you'll hear in the booth of a football game, with a bunch of edgy jokes that interrupted the flow of the game, and with a bunch of comments that definitely did not make Disney and definitely did not make the National Football League proud of their product. And here we go with how it starts.
Joined here in the Monday Night Football booth by Jimmy Kimmel. Hi, how are you?
Hello.
Nice to be close to you.
Hello, everybody. What happened to Joe? Were you frisking me?
Where's Joe?
All right, immediately we're off to an interesting start. In case you couldn't tell, this is a very different booth from the one that Kimmel was with in 2006. Mike Tirico is still there, as is Tony Kornheiser for some reason. But there is no Joe Theismann, as Ron Jaworski had taken his place. Theismann had been with ESPN for nearly 2 decades. He became the color commentator for Sunday Night Football in 1988, and served in that role all the way until 2005, when ESPN decided to go for the rights to Monday Night Football instead. Theismann and Kornheiser were not the greatest pairing in the world. That's a video for another time. ESPN tried to downplay the tension between the two, but you could tell the chemistry was not there. There were even rumors that Tony Kornheiser had Joe Theismann fired, and that the two clashed off set, which Mike Tirico strongly denied, saying, "There was not one off-air moment of tension between them during the year. I saw them eat meals together and play golf together a couple of times." Those who choose to portray that they didn't get along together, that's inaccurate. This is going to come back in just a little bit, especially since Theismann had been critical of the direction that the broadcast was going. But after 2 decades of being with the network, and after ESPN made sure that there were no hard feelings with this move, with Executive Vice President Norby Williamson saying that Theismann did a phenomenal job with us, I'm sure this came as a shock to everyone when Kimmel just decided to throw a stray at Theismann. It's one thing to ask him how his leg was 21 years after the fact, with him in attendance, giving him a chance to respond. It's another thing to remind everyone that he was fired while the body's still bleeding. So this wasn't the best start, even if he did find it funny. But Mike Tirico played it off pretty well, playing up the leg joke. Solid improv on Tirico's part, as he was trying to wiggle out of this and give Kimmel a way out. Instead, Kimmel decided to double down, and what followed was, well...
Yeah, and last time you were here, you asked Joe how his leg was.
Yeah.
And that actually has caused him not to return.
Is that really? Is that what it was?
Yes.
Me? I didn't know. I thought Tony had him fired.
Oh, I thought we agreed beforehand you were going to blame that on Jaws.
Yep, just bring up the rumors that Tony Kornheiser got Joe Theismann fired. Again, even if this was funny, you could see why at this point, Disney is already starting to lose it and pray that this segment ends, even though it literally just started. They were trying to get away from the tension between Kornheiser and Theismann that was highly publicized. They were trying to turn a new leaf. And for Jimmy Kimmel to go out there and immediately make a joke about Theismann losing his job thanks to Tony Kornheiser? Oh man, that's not good. And from there, it only got worse. Because then, he openly asked about whether or not anyone actually cared about this game.
Is anyone watching still?
This game?
Yes.
Yes.
Because there's more people in this booth than the stadium.
Now, I don't know about you, but if I'm a viewer and I'm a fan of one of these teams, and I have to listen to someone in the booth ask if I still care about this game, I'm not going to be too happy. He also said that there were more people in the booth than in the stadium, which I'm sure the NFL was not too pleased with, completely disrespecting the product and the audience like that. An NFL game is meant to feel big and feel important, and Kimmel is out there bashing the product, saying that no one cares and that no one's here. And maybe that line would be okay in the fourth quarter of a bloodbath, but in an 11-point game at the start of the second half, you can see why the higher-ups had a problem with this. You can see why the higher-ups were panicking with Kimmel on the mic. This almost feels like the NFL hiring Paul McCartney to do the halftime show at the Super Bowl, because he's a safe, completely inoffensive pick. And it goes well. So they decide to have him do it again the following year, and he does a burlesque routine. This was not the Kimmel that Disney was expecting to be in the booth. This is not what the NFL had in mind. And it gets worse, because on the very next play, Kimmel interrupts the play, which he was so conscious of trying to not do in 2006, as he let Tirico call all the moments of the action and only talked in between the plays. And he interrupted the play to say this.
The support, Jaws, from the receivers.
No question about it. A lot of money invested in those wide receivers. You got to catch the rock.
Well, Harrington's not a great quarterback, but he's very nice to his pets.
Deflected in the air.
And that is what's most important.
Incomplete as...
In case you couldn't catch that, he said that Joey Harrington's not a great quarterback, but he's very nice to his pets. And you can absolutely see why Disney and the NFL, as funny as that line was, would not want him saying that kind of stuff on the air. For those who don't know the context, the only reason that Joey Harrington is in the position he's in to be quarterbacking the Falcons is because the real starting quarterback of the Falcons, Michael Vick, was just thrown in the slammer for dogfighting. It was one of the biggest scandals in NFL history, and one of the faces of the league was now serving 2 years for animal cruelty. Not going to dive too much into the specifics, because there's tons of videos and articles on that. But this would be like if during a Patriots game in 2013, you went on the air and said, Matthew Mulligan isn't a very good tight end, but he's either a really good person or he's a really good murderer who's very good at hiding the bodies. This would be like calling a Ravens game in 2014 and saying that this is a guy you can trust on the elevator. We're 2 plays into Kimmel's appearance in the booth, and he's already said that Tony Kornheiser cost Joe Theismann his job, he openly wondered if anyone cared about the game, and he made a dogfighting joke. And we're not done yet. We're only just getting started. Because what's worse than one Joe Theismann joke? How about a second?
We'd like to welcome those of you who watched the Cleveland Indians defeat the Boston Red Sox 4-2, take a 2-game-to-1 lead in the American League Championship Series. Here, the Falcons trailing the Giants 21-10 as Warrick Dunn carries for less than a half yard. explosive first quarter. Giants took a 14-10 lead. Eli Manning razor sharp in the first. Hit Plexico Burress for a 43-yard touchdown at the beginning of the second quarter. Their 8th touchdown hookup of the year, tying Moss and Brady for the most in the NFL. And that's where we sit. 21-10. The Falcons are 1-4 under first-year coach Bobby Petrino. Giants started 0-2, looking for their 4th consecutive win to get within a game of the Cowboys in the NFC East.
Also like to welcome Joe Theismann, watching from his living room with steam coming out of his ears.
Gotta love how no one laughed at that one. You could feel the silence of attention in the booth there. We also get a second attendance joke, which doesn't land when you can hear the noise and also see the stands absolutely full after the referees blow the play dead in controversial fashion.
Series appearance. Giants 1st and 10. And Manning one more time, complete to Burress. The ball comes out, but the play is blown dead. Whistle blows forward progress on this play, stopping it as a gain of 8 yards. Bobby Petrino agrees with the 60,000 at the Georgia Dome.
Oh, there are not 60,000 people here. There's maybe 6. There were like 40 at the beginning of the game.
And then, when Kimmel was asked his thoughts about Tom Brady, we get this joke that, while funny, is not only inaccurate, but is also highly inappropriate.
What do you think of Brady?
Of what?
Brady.
What do I think of him?
Yeah.
I mentioned in the pre-game show that what impresses me most is he was able to impregnate 2 supermodels at once. That is huge. That beats any Super Bowl ring.
And to top it all off, we get a betting joke and a lengthy conversation about betting, which, remember, betting was not legal back then in just about every state, and was an extremely taboo subject that the NFL didn't want anyone to mention.
Did you guys bet on this game?
No, we bet on the 3rd supermodel's name that Brady would be with.
Are you allowed legally to bet on football games? I mean, I know people that play the game obviously aren't, but what about you guys? You
Only
fall into that?
offshore. I do it all the time.
Remember that 2 decades ago, talking about betting was like talking about Voldemort or talking about Bruno. The NFL wanted no mention of it whatsoever, and it wasn't too long ago that Tony Romo, while still playing for the Cowboys, couldn't hold his fantasy football draft in Las Vegas because it was a violation of NFL rules. And here's Kimmel openly asking if the commentators place bets on the game and how you can place bets on football. With that, his appearance finally came to an end. And as it turns out, this would be his last one. He went about 5 steps over the line with his appearance. From his Joe Theismann jokes, to his dogfighting joke, to his Tom Brady joke, to his quips about betting, and about no one being at the game or caring about the game. Now, Theismann himself had no problem with the quip. He was taking it in good stride. He was watching CSI anyway, so he didn't hear the comments in real time. But when he found out afterwards, he thought it was funny, saying, "I don't have an opinion about what people say, but it's nice to know you're missed." Disney, on the other hand, did not share the same sense of humor, with Jay Rothman, the producer for Monday Night Football, making the decision to ban him, with Rothman saying that Kimmel's jokes in the booth were classless and disappointing. It was cheap. The more he went on, the worse he got. Kimmel never apologized for any of this, as he had no idea that he was doing anything wrong. He probably felt as though if what he was saying was that awful, he'd be asked to leave right then and there, and wouldn't have stayed in there for nearly 10 minutes of game time. Kimmel said on the Theismann comments that, "I was not making fun of Joe Theismann. I was just making everyone else in the booth uncomfortable." He also seemed to take it in stride and said, "Technically, couldn't you say Joe Theismann has also been banned from Monday Night Football? I don't know what I did exactly, but apparently it was horrific. I just can't imagine CBS Sports putting out a similar statement about David Letterman. Whether I'm technically banned, or whether Jay Rothman has the right to make that decision, let's put it this way. Jay Rothman is banned from my show." Kimmel added, "I guess the executive producer was upset with some jokes I made on the air, and I'm still not sure which ones, but he announced in the New York Times that I was banned from Monday Night Football. I was surprised. I was just a guest commentator. This is the first time I've been fired from a job I didn't have. I don't feel I owe anyone an apology. Quite the reverse, actually. Everyone seemed really happy in the booth, and then I left, and then I read in the New York Times that he's banned me. And yeah, maybe Jay Rothman could have handled this a lot better. Maybe going to the New York Times and just announcing to the world that Kimmel had been banned from Monday Night Football and making this a public matter when it did not have to be, seeing as he was just a guest star for one game, and seeing as you never even spoke to him, was completely rash and uncalled for. But you can also see why Kimmel's comments sounded the alarms with Disney, seeing as the NFL probably gave them a piece of their mind for allowing this to happen. You think Disney wanted to bash Kimmel and say he sucked at comedy when they literally employ him to do a different comedy show? Purely speculation on my end, but they probably felt some pressure from the NFL to act and put out a statement like this, seeing as the jokes about Tom Brady, Michael Vick, betting, and not caring about the game rubbed the league the wrong way. Either way, whether it was Disney's call, the NFL's call, a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, or just Rothman going rogue, Kimmel was no longer welcome in the Monday Night Football booth, although he would return for a halftime segment in 2022 with Joe Buck. So I guess the ban was lifted a decade and a half later, and I guess everything's been mended and everything's water under the bridge now. But if any of you are watching this video and you ever get an opportunity to go into the Monday Night Football booth, here's a word of advice on what not to do. Do not make a joke about no one being in the crowd. Do not make a joke about the face of the league impregnating someone. Do not make a joke about the other face of the league being in jail. Do not make a joke about an employee of the company for 2 decades getting fired and someone just a couple of feet away from you causing it. And if you're going to do it, don't do it in front of an 8-figure audience. What's odd about what Jimmy Kimmel did was the fact that there was no indication that he'd do this. His 2006 appearance was really funny and had everyone in stitches while playing to the flow of the game perfectly. The 2007 appearance was a complete 180. Whether he deserved to get banned, if that's even the right word for it since it was never under contract, is up to you. But regardless, if you're watching this video, Jimmy, I'd like to welcome you, watching from your living room, with steam coming from your ears. Check out our live streaming schedule for the next few days. We're live every single day on this channel, whether we're covering a sporting event or playing GeoGuessr or just taking your requests. So make sure you like and subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single time that we go live and so that you can join this community. Also, thanks to all our members and our Patreon supporters who get exclusive perks like their name of the end of each video, members-only Q&A streams, and cool emojis to use on videos and during streams. See how you can join this community and become a member or a Patreon member by clicking the link in the description below.